Hello my friends, Asoka the Geek here, and for this review we're going to take a look at the new McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Steel, supposedly based on his appearance in Reign of the Superman. First of all, huge thanks to McFarlane Toys for sending me these for an early review, and we do have the standard Steel and the Platinum Edition version, which will be randomly distributed. Depending on your luck, you might end up with the one on the right here. So a lot to unpack with these two figures. First off, just excited to have a Steel figure. Reign of the Superman, the death of Superman, that's what really got me into reading comic books on a regular basis. I think I was like 12, 13 years old when this story came out. I'm aging myself a bit here. But this is, for me, what really got me into comic books on a regular basis. And that's, I've been collecting them ever since. So I have a lot of fondness for John Henry Irons here because, I just love the character. The Reign of the Superman, Death of Superman storyline was the first, interconnected storyline that I ever really read and understood and got into. I just remember going to the comic book store was it Thursday back then? I don't know, Wednesday or Thursday, to find out what would happen next, and John Henry Irons was I think my favorite of the new Supermans, and I liked them all. I loved Superboy, the Eradicator, even Cyborg Superman. It was just such a cool twist on the whole thing, having 4 different Supermans and trying to figure out which one was Superman. Obviously, John Henry Irons wasn't Kal-El, but I remember reading the story that maybe he had his soul because he had his virtues and was kind of acted like Superman, and he made you think, was Superman's soul in John Henry Irons? It was great just reading that story and wondering if any of these guys were Superman. And of course, spoiler alert, none of them were. But John Henry Irons was definitely, a great character that they created in the 90s. He's a character that's endured. We're in 2024, and he's still, I think, a very prominent member of the Superman family. And he's, kind of the Iron Man of the DC universe. But I never think of him that way because to me, he's wearing more of a suit of armor versus a high-tech kind of suit. I really loved, especially back then, the simplicity of his suit. It wasn't overly high-tech. It was basically just something that gave him, extra strength and protection, but he still swung that hammer around, so it never really struck me as Iron Man, really. It was just, a really cool guy in a suit of armor. Love the costume design with the red cape and the S, because again, was standing in for Superman, so that really was just a cool design. Now, this particular figure we're looking at it says on the box, Reign of the Superman, but honestly, this costume is not the Reign of the Superman suit. That suit had a traditional Superman S. This is his later version of his own kind of S. It looks kind of Superman-esque, but this is not the one from the Reign of the Superman. And then the suit of armor itself, I see some hints of that armor, but this is definitely a different version. I don't know if this is specifically from a particular comic book. I think it's just his later version of the costume. I don't remember. I can't say for sure what era it's from, but it does have a lot of the hints to the original, like on his wrist there, that the gauntlet where he shoots. It wasn't guns. It was metal rods or something that he shot out over there. So that is consistent. The red cape is consistent. The S logo. So it kind of sort of is, inspired by the Reign of the Superman, you could say. It is, I think, a comic book specific costume. I do remember him seeing him in this sort of suit, but it's definitely not the specific Reign of the Superman Steel. So just get that out of the way. But still, it's a really nice looking Steel figure. And I didn't even know we were getting this Platinum Chase, so excited for this. And yeah, anyways, without further ado, let me get off my let's not have a soapbox. Let me just get off my tangent here, and let's take a dive into both of these figures. All right, my friends. So here are both Steels outside of the packaging. First, we have the trading cards, which are exactly the same on both figures, and you can kind of see what costume this is based on. I do remember this version, so there's that, and Oops. There's the bio on the back if you want to read more about steel. Then he comes with this, the base, and then you have the figure, and the only accessory is the hammer, which is all you really need. So let's talk about these figures. And guys, by now you know my reviews. I try to be very positive. I try to find the beauty in anything, and I'm generally a positive fellow. But I do have, unfortunately, some problems with this figure. And again, I think it's because my anticipation was so high because, as I mentioned in the opening, I'm such a fan of steel. But right off the right off the bat, what really caught my eye, and I'm hoping it comes through in the image here, is these blue swirls throughout the figure. And I just don't understand them, really. I've been looking online and I don't see a comic book reason for this. And please, in the comments, correct me if I'm wrong. But I just don't understand why there's blue swirls throughout the figure. It looks like blue paint. It looks like, you know, he got paint doused on him, or he was doing painting in the Fortress of Solitude. And honestly, this is how I look after I do painting. My wife always laughs at me because I literally have paint on my forehead because I am not a good painter. But it just looks like there's random paint throughout the figure. And at first I thought, okay, is this mine? Is this just the figure I got? But then I look at the Platinum Chase and I do see the same blue paint throughout this one as well. It's less prominent, but it's definitely there. So I'm thinking this is how it's supposed to look. And I just don't, for the life of me, understand why it looks like this or why this choice was made. Again, unless there is a specific comic book reason that I'm not aware of, you know, and which is possible. I mean, I am not up to date on all of Steel's appearances, but I just don't understand the blue swirls. And overall, the paint, like, you know, I wish it was a metallic paint job because it's steel. It should look metallic. It should look shiny. You know, obviously the figure itself isn't painted from the looks of it. I think the S shield is painted. Even that, it's like a very sort of haphazardly painted like logo. And again, if this is comic book specific, you know, please correct me, but I don't. It's really not painted that great. It looks like it was by design. But yeah, so that's odd. And then, yeah, there's no paint on the figure other than the blue specks. So this really needed a coat of paint. It really needed like a silver coat of paint or something, because I just don't get the blue specks. It just really looks like he was painting something and then had to stop, or, you know, I just very odd. I just can't wrap my head around why there's the blue specks in there. It looks like there's paint on the boots. Like I see some gray paint there, like kind of scuffed up dirtiness. I guess that's something. But yeah, just really odd choice with the blue specks, and it's distracting from a really nice sculpt. So just onto the positive, I think this is a really nicely sculpted figure. The head looks great. You have the bolts going on top, very John Henry-esque. The shoulders look nicely done. The belt, again, the gauntlet here is painted, so that looks pretty good. And then the suit is very much steel. It looks like steel. Even though it's not specifically the Reign of the Supermen steel, it's still a really nice steel figure. But again, the paint is just a big problem for me with this. It's just the blue specks. I would rather it not have any blue specks at all. And even if they didn't paint the figure and they just, you know, it's a molded gray that they chose to go with, okay, fine. That makes sense because, you know, it costs more to paint it. But this blue specking swirly thing throughout the figure is just an interesting choice. Maybe I'm not seeing the vision of it, or it's again comic book specific, and let me know in the comments what you guys think, or if I'm just wrong about this. But yeah, I think it's just a little distracting because I don't know, doesn't seem to like, it kind of reminds me of Venom a little bit, you know, or like a symbiote suit, or Carnage, where he's got like different colors throughout the suit and it's like living. Maybe that's what this is going for. I don't know. But yeah, it's definitely a choice. Definitely a choice. Then the hammer's fine, but I am a little concerned how wobbly it is, just because it's a really long piece of plastic they use, and it's already kind of starting to bow a little bit. So that's just a concern there, but I think it should be fine because, you know, he can kind of hold it like this. And, you know, once you put it up like this, it looks pretty good. I mean, it looks like he's going to look nice on the shelf with the rest of the Superman family. But, yeah, the blue swirly thing, very interesting choice. Articulation is good. You can make some fun steel poses with this. Look at that. You know, he moves around very nicely. Although the legs don't go that far on mine. I'm not trying to pop it off, but that's one thing. It doesn't really go too far. You have toe articulation there. Shoulders, still good range of motion, even with the shoulder pads. They do pop up there. And the head moves up and down. Then you can kind of see how it moves there. But yeah, there it is. There is the regular edition of Steel. All right, and the other thing is, this guy's hard to stand, but there he is. All right, let's go on to the Platinum edition. And honestly, I think I like this one a little bit more because there's less blue swirly things going on, especially on the head at least. I like this version. It's a cool look for Steel. I like the silver. This has some metallic paint, which I think should have been on the whole figure. But there's the silver behind the negative space of the S. This reminds me of the Kenner, not the Kenner. Was it the Kenner or the Mattel line of DC figures they did? God, it was Total something. I forgot the name of it. Total Hero, something like that. They did a line of figures. That's what this Steel reminds me of. You guys will know what I'm talking about if you've been collecting for a while. But there it is. I think this is a fun version of Steel. This is a good Platinum chase because, I don't know, it's just a fun, different colored version of Steel. Again, I don't think it's comic book specific. And I think this would have looked better with a red cape on as well. But again, they're going for a completely sort of 1 to 2 tone motif here. But then again, you got the blue swirls going on. So don't know what that's about. But there he is. So there's both versions of Steel. So overall, just kind of thoughts here. I think the sculpt is great. I love the sculpt quite a bit. I think it's really nicely done. I like the suit that they went with. Again, even though it's not Reign of the Superman Steel, it's still a nice version of Steel. Probably could have been a little bit buffer, just because I always think of John Henry Irons as, you know, a really buff kind of guy. And this one's a little skinny. But again, really, the swirly thing is what's really confusing me. You know, it's just, if you look at that pose, though, you can really pose them nicely. But yeah, the blue swirls, that's what I'm getting out of this. Anyways, let's go ahead and see how he looks next to some other McFarlane figures. All right, my friends, so here is John Henry Irons with Superboy, Superman, and the Eradicator. And once you put him next to these other Superman family members, he looks great. My swirly blue complaints aside, it's a beautifully sculpted figure. Looks great next to these other Superman family members. I like his height, that he's taller than all these other characters. That would have been really disappointing if he was shorter, but I'm glad he's taller. Could have been a little buffer, but that's okay. I think it's still a beautifully sculpted Steel figure. So, final thoughts. Obviously, the blue swirls and the paint job overall just is disappointing. I do wish it was like metallic color or just a different choice was made. And again, if that blue is not comic book specific, then not really sure why it's there. It just kind of looks like he was painting and got messy. But other than that, it's a nice figure. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'll be doing more content over on my Instagram channel. I'll do some comparisons with Steel and the Mattel Steel and the DC Direct Steel as well. So there you go. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like this video, please consider subscribing. And thanks for your time. Have a great day.